Thank you all so much for joining us for today's session, Cultivating Student Engagement Online. My name is Sam, and I'm on the educator community team here at Course Hero, and I'm very honored to introduce our speaker today, Jonathan Chin. John currently designs and teaches computer science courses at Medgar Evers College in partnership with the New York City Tech Talent Pipeline, which is a $10 million initiative to prepare New York City college students to serve in local tech jobs. He's also the founder and CEO of Share Meals, which is a hunger tech organization building software and hardware solutions to boost food security in the US and beyond. And we're very honored to have him join us today. Just before he gets into his session, a few quick technical notes before I pass that mic over to our speaker. Today's session will involve breakout rooms, and if you run into any technical difficulties whatsoever, please do not hesitate to message us in the Zoom chat. This session is also live captioned, so please use the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to turn on subtitles if you need them. And lastly, if you have any questions for our speaker, please feel free to submit them to the general chat. We'll be keeping track of those as they come in. And I think he's also going to share a Jamboard during the breakout sessions where you can also leave questions there. And I believe you can, John is graciously offering to give out his email at the end, so you can contact with him with any further questions there. And so with that out of the way, please give a warm welcome to our speaker, Jonathan Chin.
Thank you so much. Great to see all of you. It's a magnificent opportunity to be here and to talk about my experiences. Let me share my screen. There we go. All right, so today I'd love to talk about cultivating student engagement online. I know that the last year and a half or so, we've all sort of been thrown into this giant chasm of online learning. So how can we come together as a community of educators and share best practices with each other? Just for those of you who like to keep count of everything, this is the structure for today's workshop. I want to do a quick intro into who I am and what my experiences are and what brought me here. I want to address three major topics. First, what does student attention look like? I apologize for that. I want to address what student attention looks like in the online classroom. I want to talk about the adoption of technology, what are the hurdles there, and what are some best practices that we can have to ease that in. I also want to talk about transferable knowledge. A lot of our campuses and our schools are returning to face-to-face instruction in the upcoming year, or they're becoming hybrid sessions. So once we come back to face-to-face instruction, what are some of the best things that we can take from online learning and implement it there? And also, I am not the be-all, end-all final source of truth for any of this. I know what works for me and what works for my classroom, and we have, what, 100 educators here with us in this session, and it would be really great for all of us to learn from each other. So we're going to have breakout rooms for knowledge sharing, and then as one final activity before we end our workshop today, we'll just do a quick share out of the main topics. How does that sound to everybody?
John, we've gotten a couple of questions about whether or not you can put the presentation in full screen mode for visibility.
Sure.
That'd be great.
I do like to be able to highlight and select things for emphasis. Sure. If it is an issue, I can do full screen mode. We do see a lot of people agreeing with that, so let's do that. How's that? Is that a lot better?
I'm seeing thumbs up.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so introduction to who I am. I am a 20-year veteran educator in New York City. I've taught specifically, I've taught specifically in the poorest neighborhoods, including Rikers Island. Some of the things that I've been focusing on are martial arts, GED slash HSC level math and science, speech, computer science, as Chris had mentioned earlier, but I specifically specialize with adult learners and teaching English. I also finished my master's in 2021, which means that I transitioned from fully face-to-face learning to virtual learning pretty much overnight. So I have a lot of insight onto what that feels like as a student. And, you know, some awesome stuff from there. I've also taught slash am teaching 2 fully online courses. I taught one in January, and I'm actually currently teaching one this this summer. So I have this unique dual perspective as a student and as a teacher, and I hope that that can bring forward into what we're doing. I'm a little distracted by chat because people are messaging me. First of all, thank you all for the congratulations. Christopher Nelson asks, do I teach karate online? I was actually teaching karate in person, and we all of a sudden had to switch over to virtual online learning, and I somehow mashed that together, and we did like 2 or 3 sessions online. It wasn't the best. Awesome. All right, so I want to talk about student attention, because what we see in the online classroom is probably a lot different than what we see in the face-to-face classroom. And really the first thing that I want to bring forward is that there is the possibility for alternative forms to show attention. You know, I'm pretty sure that most of us have grown up in face-to-face classrooms. You know, a lot of our experience comes from teaching in person, and so we know what signs to look for when it comes to attention, right? Students are either looking up or looking down at their desk. They've got a notebook, they've got a pen, right? But when it comes to online teaching, a lot of that goes out the window. So how else can we see if students are paying attention? And so I have a great case study. It's from one of the classes I'm actually currently teaching. And I have the student called Yashadi. And during all of our classes, I have sort of developed this quasi routine where at the end of our, when we come back from our breaks, I always ask everybody to put a reaction, an emoji reaction in chat. I never formally announce that as a routine. It's just something that I keep doing day after day, week after week. And Yashadi has recognized that to the point where whenever we come back from break, even before I ask for it, he gives an emoji reaction. And for me, that signifies that, you know, he's paying attention, that he's recognized this pattern, and that he wants to participate in it, even before I actually ask for it, right? So that is definitely a huge positive sign that he's paying attention. Another thing that we want to consider is that all of a sudden, everybody is a front row student. Again, looking back to our face-to-face classrooms, we sort of know that there are students who purposefully sit on the sidelines, who purposefully sit in the back. It's not necessarily that they don't want to pay attention. It's not necessarily that they want to goof off, but some students are introverts. You know, some students really hate having the spotlight shown on them. But now with Zoom, with everybody's webcam just like front and center, everybody now all of a sudden becomes this front row student. And I became aware of that in one of my classes with my student, Jalen. So my classes typically run sort of the same way that we're running the workshop here today, in that, I talk for a little bit, we do a breakout room, students work independently, and then we come back and we share. And when I'm doing sort of the standard lecture, Jalen never participates. He never asks questions, he never answers questions, he never gives reactions, he never types into chat. But a week ago, I sat in on one of his breakout rooms. He was working with 3 or 4 other students, and he was sort of the star there. He kept everybody else on track. He reminded everybody of what we had been talking about in class. It was very, very clear that even though he wasn't talking during our sort of like our main room, he was definitely absorbing information. So using those 2 examples, how can we restructure or reimagine what we understand to be paying attention and showing attention? I'd like to also acknowledge that online learning, as I'm sure all of you are aware of, it introduces a lot of new confounding factors. So I don't know about you, but a lot of my students are in environments where cameras, microphones, and even keyboards are not viable. For example, I have a student, Joel. He's learning from home. He does try to participate as much as he can, but every time he unmutes his mic to talk, I hear a toddler in the background, a very, very noisy and very vocal toddler. I don't know his exact situation, but I get the sense that he's trying to juggle online learning with taking care of his family at the same time. And so all of that limits and impacts the way that they can participate in the ways that we probably want them to participate. So just keeping an eye out for that and keeping that in our attention, I think should help. And I'd like to also mention that this doesn't diminish any of the sacrifices or compromises that our students continue to make. I've had a lot of students join Zoom while they were at work, while they were sitting down at their desk or while they were walking around. And I think my initial reaction was, they should really commit. They should really find the time to find a quiet room and make out time for that. But then I remembered all the sacrifices and compromises that my face-to-face students were making. I had a lot of students who would come straight from work to class, and they'd come in their work uniforms. All these sacrifices. So students zooming in from work or from home while they're taking care of their kids, it's the same kind of sacrifices, the same kind of compromises that they've been making in the traditional classroom. And just like viewing it in that mindset makes me appreciate all that more. And I also want to talk about the adoption of technology, right? Because we're all forced into online learning, virtual learning, there is maybe this explicit or implicit expectation that we also take advantage of the internet and all of these awesome tools that are around. And so I know that a lot of us have some difficulties and obstacles with that, and I want to talk about that. So the one thing that I've really found to be helpful is to deputize students. So for most of us, our students are digital natives. They've grown up with tech. They've literally had iPhones in their hands when they were 5 years old. And they're online nearly constantly. So they know it. And if we rely on that, if we draw them forward and make them deputies of new emerging technologies, that can actually be really great. As a case study, I want to talk about an online service called Replit and one of my students, Darren. So I'm teaching an online computer science course, and I'm trying to keep modern and to adjust with all the times. And my student stepped up and he said, there's this online resource called Replit, and it can actually replace a lot of the standard tools and technologies and things that you're used to using. And, I sat down with him, he did a walkthrough of it, I had my questions, and it looked really good. So I made Darren our unofficial Replit representative. We shifted over to using this new technology, and Darren was able to help with all that transition. And during that course, anytime I had questions, anytime I had things I wanted to do that I didn't know how to do in Replit, I just asked Darren to step forward. And so part of that, one of the great things about that is it relieves me of the burden of trying to have to master new technology. And it also allows Darren to be seen as a legitimate and essential source of knowledge. And from this, it's more likely that he's going to be invested into the course and participate more. And of course, once we open up that opportunity for one student, that does open the opportunity for other students. I do have another case study with a professor called Nico, but we are running short on time according to my schedule. So I'll leave him out for now. I'll leave that story for another day. In addition to, along the lines of this talk of adoption with technology, I want to talk about what the students are currently using and where they currently are. I call this the immutable TikTok of time. So technology is really weird in that it has a lot of really great, unique opportunities. The internet, in some cases, has less gatekeeping. It has a unique form of anonymity. When you join these social media platforms, of course, you have your name and you have your profile photo and everything, but no one really clicks on your profile. No one really checks up on you and sees who you are. And of course, because a lot of students are already on these major platforms like Reddit and Twitter and Facebook, there's less adoption friction. So instead of having to get all of my students onto this new platform, I'm really just going where they are. And so I have a really great friend who's a professor in a local community college named Kevin, and he started using TikTok to get to his students. Some of it was creating TikTok videos and posting them online. Some of it was actually just using the TikTok platform to generate the videos, generate the lectures, and save those and send them to students without publishing it, without making it public. And he found that a lot of the students started to respond a lot better because his lecture videos were in a format they were already very, very familiar with. So he's had a lot of success with that. There's also a whole bunch of communities online where students congregate and they talk about their experiences. They commiserate and they sympathize with each other. One of the biggest ones is called Zoom Memes for Self-Quarantines. It's a Facebook group with about 900,000 followers. And it's mostly with students, but as an educator, as a teacher, as a professor, you can also join it. And you can also engage with the community. Every now and again, we'll get a professor or an educator who pops up and they say that, they've been reading through the Facebook group for a while, they've been following all the talks, and they'll use it as a direct channel to the students to understand better what their obstacles are, what their feelings and responses are. And I think this is a really, really great use of an existing online community. And finally, I want to talk about transferable knowledge. What can we take from online communities and virtual learning, and how can we transfer that to when we're finally back in the classroom? One of the biggest things for me, and I've been sitting with this question for the last couple of days, and really the biggest thing for me is that virtual learning made me appreciate the importance of social connections. We may not realize it, but a lot of the social interactions that our students have in the face-to-face classroom are incredibly important. Even in big lectures, students will often come to class early and sit down. They'll stay after a couple of minutes and talk with the people next to them. There is this community building, and there is this, if not explicit, there's this implicit interaction with each other. And that contributes so much to the learning experience. As a case study, I want to talk about my experience in one of my own master's classes with a professor called Nico, and he's the same person from before. And he was having a really difficult time transitioning from face-to-face to virtual learning. And when he originally designed a lot of his activities and lessons with breakout rooms, he would give just like 5 minutes for a breakout room. And he'd expect everybody to go in, talk, accomplish a task, and then exit and leave. And what I found was that our breakout rooms were really the only times that I had, the only chances that I had to socialize with my fellow students. And, a lot of the time that we were allotted was spent with catching up with each other, with introducing ourselves, with making small talk. And that was pretty important if I was going to work with these students for the next, work with these colleagues for the next couple of minutes. I wanted to form these connections with them. But with a breakout room of 5 minutes, that was really, really impossible. So I worked with Nico. I made him aware of these sort of burgeoning tensions in our breakout rooms. And then we started making them a lot longer. And I think the overall educational experience improved a lot. And so that was a major thing on my mind. And I'm also wondering, what else? What are the other lessons that we can take and transfer them over? And I think that's a really, really good segue into the next section of our workshop today. Breakout discussions. Some of us are, I don't know how everybody feels about breakout sessions, but let's try them today. Let me, sorry. So for our breakout sessions, I want to use a new technology called Jamboard. And I will paste a link into chat for everybody. All right. So everybody, I'm seeing a lot of great comments and ideas and questions in chat. This workshop is way, way too short to answer all of those, so I apologize. There is a page on our Jamboard for you to leave questions asynchronously, and I can respond to them. So basically, we're going to have 3 breakout rooms, one specifically for student attention, one for adoption of technology, and one for transferable knowledge. In these rooms, I want you to talk with everybody, share your best practices, share your questions. If you have questions about them, try to answer them. Let's really come together as a community to pool all of our knowledge. On your Jamboard, you can also use that as a living document to take notes of what your breakout room has discussed and talked about. And then that Jamboard will be available to you. There are currently too many people viewing. Oof, okay, that's an issue. Okay. You can use this, ideally you can use this Jamboard to come back to after the session is over. I'm seeing a lot of people in chat saying that there are too many people viewing this Jamboard. And I guess that is a teachable moment, right? Sometimes we're trying to adopt all these new technologies, we're trying to make the best of it, and these roadblocks come up. I apologize if you can't get onto Jamboard. Linda says that Jamboard only allows 35 people. That's really great to know. Maybe one person in each breakout room, you can share your screen, and then you can be sort of the Jamboard driver, okay? Awesome, we have to roll with the punches, right? Okay, so let's take about 20 minutes. Do we have 20 minutes? Let's take 15 minutes. Let's go into our breakout rooms and let's chat.
And just to quickly interject, to join the breakout rooms, you'll click the breakout rooms button on the bottom there, and you'll be able to pick whichever breakout room you want to join and engage in.
All right, so welcome back, everybody. I know that was a pretty short time, but hopefully it was energetic and valuable. I do want to, again, emphasize this idea of knowledge sharing and collaboration. I'd love to hear like 1 or 2 really important topics from each room, just so that it is not chaotic. I might ask our course hero volunteers who are in the rooms to share one important point, just so that there's one specific person to talk. Does that make sense?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So whoever was in room 1 with student attention, what's like one major thing that your group talked about?
We had a really great discussion. I think the educators in the audience were eager to share ideas, technologies, approaches. The underlying themes seem to be, what attention is kind of depends on how you can best enable student learning. Attention isn't something that you check in order to police your students and make sure that they're doing what you tell them to do. Attention is something that you foster for the sake of making sure that students can actually engage with the material as effectively as they can, learn from it, and be a part of that process. So co-creating the experience with them to make sure that they're attending to what you're presenting, but in a way that then fosters their learning in turn.
Wonderful, thank you. I'll speak for my group. This is the group on adoption of technology. And a lot of our conversation centered around how to support students who, for whatever reason, don't have access or may not want to access new forms of technology. So we talked about older students, we talked about students with financial situations that prevent them from having access to technology. And we didn't quite settle on any definite answers, but I think the overall consensus was we have to be inclusive. We have to offer alternatives, alternatives that are just as valuable and just as engaging as any tech first solution that we try to put out. We have to give multiple options. Thank you, Shannon. Just to make sure that everybody has a fair shot at learning. Another really, really important question that popped up that I want to give voice to that I wasn't able to answer is some of these subject areas that we all teach don't easily transfer to virtual learning. So I think our examples were like CPR classes, EMS classes. You can't really do that without being physically present. So that's a big hurdle. And I think Sam.
Yeah, so one professor, Martin, so the guiding question was, what adaptations and solutions did you implement to address problems you experienced with virtual learning? And the conversation, evolved over how they've connected with their students through virtual learning and how sometimes the concepts that they were teaching in class translated very differently in an online environment. And one of them was a yoga instructor was teaching more of the philosophy and concepts behind yoga and the exercises, which opened up more discussions. And so it was approached to yoga in a completely different way versus just focusing on the physical aspects of it. And then there was Martin, who shared how he opened himself up for more authentic conversations and flexibility with students and made himself available. And his feedback was that he was getting students were putting in more effort because they had a personal connection with the instructor. And then we have Sharon, who is a nursing instructor who brought home a mannequin to demonstrate for online courses. So it was a different way to demonstrate for students online since they could not meet in person.
Magnificent. Thank you, Sam. So this brings it to our conclusion. I'm so sorry to see the end of this breakout session because it's been so amazing just hearing from all of you and hearing your stories. I do want to open up some opportunities for more questions. We won't be able to answer them right now. I don't think we have a lot of time, but if you want to type them into chat, and the Course Hero team and I will figure out a way to get answers to you or responses to you, or to foster more conversation around that. I will also love to share my email address. If you ever want to get in contact and brainstorm, solutions or opportunities or new ideas, then I'm always willing to listen. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paulette, Rafina. If you have questions, put them into chat or put them on the Jamboard if you're one of the lucky 35, or send me an email.